Welcome to This Week in Wrestling History.
All right, everyone, welcome back to This Week in Wrestling History. As always, we're your hosts. That's Jacob. I'm Ryan.
Yo.
So, what's going on this week?
This week, or what we're going to talk about?
Well, just this week first.
Not much. TLC's not coming up yet, is it?
I don't think it's this weekend yet. It's got to be like the weekend after or something.
Yeah, I think it's next weekend.
So, yeah, we're just kind of in a little bit of a lull between Survivor Series and TLC. We're just kind of building towards things.
It actually might be this weekend because they're doing the quote-unquote contract signing thing on SmackDown tonight.
Oh, well, maybe it is then. We had another really bad Raw from everything I heard. You're still on your refusal to watch Raw live, right?
Yes, I will not watch Raw live until I actually will not watch Raw, whether it's live or the Hulu edition or the day after. I'm only reading spoilers and watching clips of it.
Okay, we're doing this because
Brock won the title.
Okay, just want to make sure, and just so everyone's up to date with where we're at.
It is next weekend, December 16th.
All right.
Yeah.
I just don't have cable TV. I do have Hulu, but I never think to watch Raw on it. So.
Well, it's nice that they do like the condensed hour-and-a-half long version of it.
Yeah, but I feel like I'm probably going to like some of the stuff they cut out.
Yeah, they cut out a lot of the segments and stuff. But nope, since Brock beat Braun to win the Universal title, I will not watch Monday Night Raw until Roman comes back.
That's fair. The only thing I've read out of the Raw spoilers that this is going to be kind of sad that this is what I found noteworthy was Rhino retired.
Well, he got fired.
No, so apparently on the show that wasn't actually shown on air was him giving a goodbye speech to the crowd.
Oh.
Yeah, apparently he's done.
Because there was a bunch of things today that was like, well, we don't know Rhino's contract status, so...
Maybe it was just something for the house show to make it kind of play up as this was something big that happened in the moment. But
well, because he's still scheduled for a couple of house shows from what I was reading, too.
I mean...
He could just be finishing stuff out.
Yanking Rhino off house shows isn't going to be the end of the world either. It's not like AJ just got hurt and is off the house shows.
Fair enough.
SmackDown is tonight. We'll see if anything happens there. Tonight as of when we're recording. I'm sure there'll be another good Becky promo. Maybe.
I don't know.
Anyways.
Yep, and then TLC next week, which we don't have too many matches announced for that, do we?
We have some.
It's the women's TLC match from SmackDown.
Right, and then Ronda versus Nia.
Are we going to get Braun versus Corbin?
I haven't heard anything one way or the other.
I bet you it'll be like a tag match.
Yeah, that kind of protect him a bit. That would make some sense.
Seth and Dean, I believe.
That's definitely happening. AJ and DB again?
I think so. Which
I would imagine.
Which I hope they give them a little bit of time.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see anyone having any complaints about that one.
Right. I think that's really it so far.
Yeah, pretty much.
Otherwise, there's not a whole lot happening this week.
Let's say nothing New Japan wise that I know of to talk about.
No, and Global Wars, the final battle for ROH isn't until January.
Yeah, so we got a little bit of a lull right now. New Japan's just kind of gearing up for Wrestle Kingdom right now, still. So
yep, they're on their road to the kingdom, if you would call it. But all right, let's jump into our topic this week.
Yeah, this week we have. Again, kind of a weirdly historic event where it was the first ever Undisputed Championship for WWE.
Yeah, this was Vengence 2001, and it's where Jericho wins the WWF title and what they are now calling the World
Heavyweight. The World Heavyweight,
yeah.
So that formerly the WCW belt as of... So this is coming out of Survivor Series 2001, where the alliance of WCW and ECW talent was pretty soundly beaten.
Yeah.
Pretty soundly beaten by the WWF roster, because still WWF at the time. Pretty soundly beaten, so the alliance is gone. WCW and ECW are gone. Some folks still jumped back over to WWF after having been quote-unquote traitors. Some are still kind of like free agent status, kind of floating around. A little bit of a weird time still.
Yeah, they talk about that when Booker T shows up at one point in this pay-per-view.
Right. So right now, basically what they're doing is kind of going through and unifying a lot of the titles. They did a bunch already on Raw and SmackDown, and still kind of, this was for the world title now.
Yeah, pretty much all of the WCW titles were gone except for this one.
Yep. And so what the premise here was, instead of just having a one-on-one unification match, what we're going to do is actually have a small tournament where first up we're going to have The Rock versus Kurt Angle. Or no, sorry. We're going to have Stone Cold versus Kurt Angle for the WWF Championship.
Yep.
And then Jericho versus The Rock for the World Heavyweight Championship.
Yes.
Then the winner of those respective matches will face each other for the Unified Heavyweight Championship.
The Undisputed Heavyweight Championship. Yep. And this would have, once that happens, this would essentially signify that the Invasion angle is done and over with.
Yep. Completely dead in the water. And, I mean, the angle only lasted, I don't know, I guess it did last almost over a year.
It was just about a year.
It started in late summer of 2000, and it went until Survivor Series 2001.
Yeah. And this is essentially where WWF solidifies themselves as the company for, up until now, really, for the following, 16 years, 17 years?
Yeah, 16, 17 years. I mean, New Japan really wouldn't kind of really make a big name run until 2017, honestly.
Yeah, and Impact Wrestling is...
Like, TNA came about, late 2001, 2002?
Yeah, 2001.
Yeah, so TNA was probably existent at this point.
Yeah.
Probably getting they were still probably like their internet-only pay-per-view
Yeah,
deal.
this was their weekly pay-per-view that they were doing.
Yeah, the weekly internet pay-per-view thing.
Yep. But yeah, this would essentially signify that that's all over, and that from here on out it's
the McMahon show.
Yeah.
Even more than it's been.
Yeah.
But
they eventually they'll bring out they're still calling it the WWF Undisputed Championship, but it's the new belt design, and I believe it's around this time next year that Brock shows up and wins it.
Brock is already around.
Is he around at this point, or is he just kind of like...
I think he's around. Maybe he's not quite around yet, but it's around this time that maybe he's not yet, because he shows up with Paul Heyman, and so it must have been a little while after the end of the Invasion angle.
Yeah, I want to say it was right around 2002 that he shows up, and
right.
It's when he starts having his feuds with Taker that for the Undisputed.
Well, that took a little while to fully kick in, because at first he showed up and was just destroying the Hardys. He was destroying Spike Dudley.
He was destroying all the tiny people.
Yeah.
And then he ended up going after that title. And or was that after he had the Team Angle thing?
Ooh, I'm not even sure. So, because that starts to get a bit of time where I start to get fuzzier on things.
Yeah.
So
we'll have to go back and look at that.
We'll figure it out at some point. But anyways, so for Vengeance 2001 in and of itself,
which is actually the first Vengeance pay-per-view.
Yep, first ever Vengeance. Would eventually be replaced by Armageddon, which would eventually be replaced by TLC.
Correct.
Okay. So we open with a Vince McMahon promo. He's very upset because on SmackDown... he had to kiss someone's ass, because this was square in the middle of the Vince McMahon Kiss My Ass Club.
Yep. And mind you, it wasn't going to be The Rock. It wasn't going to be Jim Ross, and it wasn't going to be Trish.
Yep.
So it ended up being Rikishi.
Yeah. So Vince got a rock bottom and got his face shoved in Rikishi's butt. That's the thing that happened.
Yeah. I mean, cool for being the early 2000s.
Yeah. It was a thing, all right. So
we also get Ric Flair, who comes out, which
Flair comes out, doesn't care much for what Vince had to say, because they were.
Yeah, because at this point, Flair is quote unquote partnered with Vince McMahon in owning WWF.
Yeah, so supposedly in order to gain ownership of WCW and ECW, Stephanie and Shane had to come up with some money.
And they had to sell their stocks.
They sold their stock in WWF to a consortium. And as it turns out, this consortium was Ric Flair. So Ric Flair is now 50-50 owners with Vince.
Which, I mean, was kind of cool because you had Vince as pretty much the heel authority figure and Flair as the face one.
Yeah, it wasn't awful.
So the first match.
First match, we had Albert and Scotty 2 Hotty going over the team of Christian and Test.
Blech.
Yeah, this wasn't good for a number of reasons.
This was just before Christian and Test became the Un-Americans, wasn't it?
I think so, because Lance Storm would have been done with the whole invasion thing. So yeah, pretty soon we had the Un-Americans coming up here. I really disliked this because, first off, the announcers never said anything about Test and Albert having been a team at all.
Right. For quite a long time.
Yeah,
during
for a
the
decent
invasion.
bit. In the start of the Attitude Era, they were TNA.
Yeah, right.
There's so much I hate about the Attitude Era that's going to come up tonight.
Yeah, it's not great.
Everyone remembers it so fondly, and there were things about it that were good. The juvenile humor was not one of them in retrospect, and
I'm sure we're gonna
get to that. Yeah.
Yeah, it was not a good match.
No, I mean it was fine when Christian was involved. Things were better.
Yeah, but I mean, Christian and Scotty 2 Hotty in the ring is one thing, but Test and Albert in the ring together.
Albert would eventually go on once he left WWF and went to New Japan for a while.
Oh, he was great in New Japan.
He really became a thing. Yeah, Test had a great look. He was all set to be the next Kevin Nash, but never quite got there.
Yeah, he's
I mean, he really was like Kevin Nash Jr.
Yeah, except he could. I mean, at least Kevin Nash could remotely move in the ring before he had his knees blown up
And
6
cut a
times.
promo.
Right.
I'm about to say Nash could talk. Test could not.
No.
Anyways, yeah.
Overall, not anything great.
Yeah, nothing to really write home about. It was fine at times.
It was a good opener.
Yeah. Especially at the time, crowd loved the stupid Scotty 2 Hotty doing the worm thing still.
Oh,
so.
they ate that up when he started hopping around spelling out worm.
Yeah, which,
Yeah.
but I'd say that of anything that is truly regrettable about the Attitude Era, it's when I think it was really the root source of the super zany moves.
Yeah.
The People's Elbow, the worm.
Well, like the People's Elbow is one thing, but the worm takes significantly longer even than just the People's Elbow.
Right. It's the setup's way longer. The move in and of itself is dumber. Scotty 2 Hotty is not like, he's not The Rock by any means
Right.
to make this thing.
The Rock could get away
Something.
with it.
Yeah, The Rock can get away with it. Cena can get away with the stupid 5-knuckle shuffle. Scotty 2 Hotty
No.
had the worm. That's the only thing anyone ever cared about with him.
Yeah. All right. So second match, we had William Regal versus Edge for the Intercontinental belt.
Yep. So at this point, the IC belt was unified, I'm guessing, with the WCW US title.
Correct.
Okay.
Which shortly hereafter, well, not shortly, it was about 2006. Either 2000, somewhere between 2004 and 2006, we got the U.S. title in WWF for SmackDown.
Right. Once they did the brand extension and split the two shows again, which I want to say was almost 2004, I think.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
But WCW title is fused with the Intercontinental belt.
Soon after this, I think in early to mid 2002, we would actually take the IC belt and unify it with the WWF European belt
and the hardcore
belt. Yeah. So
RVD is apparently the unification machine. He unifies all three belts together.
Yeah. So there were so many titles at this point in time.
Which, I mean, I guess isn't a bad thing.
The problem is they start to become so meaningless. Like, do we really like?
I think they could have done without the hardcore belt.
They could have done without the European belt too. Because what's different between the Intercontinental belt, the US belt, and the European belt?
I mean, honestly, just nothing. But
there's really not. It's your mid card belt, and when the European belt first showed up, it was on like 2 or 3 notable people, and then it became a joke.
Yeah, I mean, it's one thing for them to have like a lower mid card belt, which is kind of what the hardcore title was. It gave
a bunch of people something to do.
It gave people a title shot at the top of the card.
Yeah.
It had fans coming in and being like, "Ooh, we're going to see a belt change hands most likely at the top of the card."
Right.
But like you said, the European belt is
It was a joke.
It's the exact same thing.
Right.
Just a different name.
And like it never had any credibility after like the first year it was around, if it ever did. I mean, Shawn had it for a while. Shawn had it.
And he never defended it.
No, Shawn had it and then dropped it to Hunter as a joke, and that was it.
Yeah.
Like, it was... I'm sure there's a whole history behind that whole thing in and of itself, but...
Yeah, that might be something to talk about at some point.
Yeah, because I think it was originally supposed to go to Davey Boy, and then Shawn was like, no, you're one of Brett's friends. F you.
Yeah.
So
back to this match. Regal and Edge. Yeah, really
this
good.
was a fun little match, yeah.
I mean you have arguably two of the better workers.
Yeah, and Regal, as much as he didn't have a ton of a character, was just super hateable almost all the time.
Well, because he was that arrogant British guy. Nobody likes the
he was
British
just,
guy.
Yeah, he was just a pain in the ass. You just was like, I don't like that guy. I don't know why, but I don't like him.
I think it was his face.
He does kind of have a hateable face. You're not wrong.
And I mean, they played up to it, so good on them.
Yeah, the guy looked like he always just smelled a fart.
Yeah. Yeah, really.
Which is kind of what you want out of the character. He nailed it. So,
but yeah, I mean, it was a fun match. They definitely made Regal look strong throughout this, even though he ended up losing.
Right, he looked. You thought at any point he could also just steal a match because at the time his gimmick was, I'm hiding a pair of brass knucks somewhere and I'm gonna pop someone in the head with some knucks.
Which up until this pay-per-view he had done to Edge, I think twice now.
Yeah, so you thought there was a legitimate chance that Edge was going to be losing the belt. Edge, by the way, still firmly in his white meat babyface run of just...
Oh yeah, this is a very dead center of the Rob Zombie song that he used to come out to.
Yeah.
Him and Christian had just broken up. And
I think they had split a little while, so...
During the invasion, they kind of...
They split during the invasion because I think Edge must have been one of the several times Edge got hurt, because early on he got hurt kind of fairly often.
Yeah.
And the only reason I know that is because the Rob Zombie was the music he came back to and got a huge reaction. So...
but this is also, shortly thereafter this, I believe him and Edge feud again for a little bit, and then they go very, very distinctly in separate directions.
Yes, very much so, because not too many years after this is Christian leaving for TNA for quite a couple of years, and then coming back to...
Which we talked about on one of our past episodes.
We sure did. All right, anyways, up after this was... the Battle of the Hardys, where it was Woken Matt versus Brother Nero?
No, not yet.
Oh.
You're about 10 years off.
About a decade soon, aren't I? Yeah. Actually, I think it's way more than a decade.
No, they were doing that in about 12 years. 2014, they were doing that.
That's close to what I was thinking about. I would say, I don't think they were doing it in 2011.
Yeah, 2012.
I'd say 2011, 13, I think
14,
Jeff was still
like that.
squarely on SmackDown. I think he was probably doing stuff with CM Punk.
Oh, yeah, when he was going after the heavyweight belt.
Yeah.
That was...
a time.
Yeah.
Anyways, so we actually had, it was just Hardy Boys, Jeff Hardy versus Hardy Boys, Matt Hardy, with Lita as the special guest referee.
Which is even worse because they came out to the exact same... The song didn't stop.
No, that was great. So Lita comes out to her own music, which isn't even the normal Lita music that we're used to. It was just some generic music.
Yeah.
And then Jeff Hardy comes out to the Hardy Boy music, and the music never stops. And then, like, a minute later, Matt walks out to the same exact loop of the song.
Same song, same Titantron. Like, everything was exactly the same. And it was just like, there's a guy on the stage.
It was almost like the Royal Rumble was happening, and they were just back-to-back entrance, and they never, like, stopped it from the first guy.
And I liked the Hardy Boys at this point. I think everybody liked the Hardy Boys at this point.
Yeah, speak for yourself.
it was not a good match.
No, it wasn't great. I mean, there was some attempts at psychology. This is really, if you go back and look at it, this is where you can see Jeff is the better performer. Matt is the better wrestler or storyteller.
Yeah.
Because at several points, Matt goes after Jeff's leg, hurts his knee real bad, and he sells the knee for a while, and Matt really works it over, but Jeff keeps doing a bunch of stuff without like paying tribute to the knee during that stuff.
Right, like even his little reverse mule kick that he always does.
Yeah, that little backflipping mule kick.
Yeah. He was standing on the hurt leg and still managed to pop off of it and kick like nothing had happened.
Yeah, and that thing where he kind of does, it's not really a roll-up, but it's a pinning thing where the opponent's legs are over their head and his legs are over their legs.
Yeah.
And like everyone usually kicks out of it anyways, but he could have really sold the leg not being able to hold one of Matt's legs down with it, and there was just a lot Jeff could have done to make the little things really count.
Yeah, you could definitely, like you said, tell Matt was the brains behind putting the matches together.
Right. Matt was the brains, Jeff was the charisma for the longest time.
Yeah.
Until Matt got woke.
Stop.
Well, tell me I'm wrong.
I mean,
broken even. Once he got broken, everyone was like, "Oh damn. We're all about Matt."
But again, he was still doing the side effect. He was still doing the twist of fate. He wasn't doing anything fancy in the ring.
Oh no, but I'm saying
but
charisma wise.
But he's still the storyteller at that point.
Oh no, I'm just saying he took the charisma from Jeff.
I don't even think that Jeff, for being called the charismatic enigma, he wasn't that charismatic.
Oh no, definitely.
The only thing the dude did was come out and dry hump the air while he was throwing his hands around, and then walk to the ring. Like that was his biggest thing.
Oh, I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just saying the fans liked Jeff more than they liked Matt.
True.
And then once Broken Hardys came around, everyone's like, "Oh no, never mind. I'm on the Matt train."
See, I'm one of the few who was always a Matt fan.
Me too.
Especially with version 1.
Version 1.0 was the best. I loved the Matt facts.
They were the greatest thing ever.
I was an MFer. All right.
Oh, boy.
So next up, we had the tag belt match.
Wait, time out. We haven't actually said who's won any of these matches.
Oh, I think we did.
So Scotty 2 Hotty and Albert won the first one.
Yeah, they beat Christian Test. I said they went over. Edge beat William Regal. Oh, so yeah, the finish of the Hardys. Yeah, I suppose we did kind of skip over some things. Jeff Hardy beat Matt Hardy with the Swanton, but Matt had his leg on the ropes, and Lita didn't notice. So that caused a little bit of stress in the relationship.
See, the only issue I had with this was he had his leg on the rope, but Jeff took his leg off of the rope, which is legal.
It's not supposed to be, I don't believe, if we go and get a copy of the WWF rulebook, which would be I would love to see an actual They should put out a gag rulebook.
I'm wondering if they have one. They had to have come up with one at some point.
I mean, I'm sure they actually have, like...
They probably sold it in WWE New York.
No, they would never make fun of themselves to this extent, but there needs to be like a pro wrestling rulebook out there somewhere that looks like an official rulebook, but has all of the craziness that the ref needs to be aware of.
But anyway, Jeff pulls Matt's leg off of the ropes, and Lita continues to count the 3, and Jeff wins.
Yep. Then later on we find out, boy, Matt didn't enjoy that, so him and his girlfriend Lita.
Yep. He ended up leaving Lita in the arena after that. He packed up his stuff and left.
Anyways, so next up we had the Tag Team Championship match, where we had our champions, the Dudleys, versus the challengers, Big Show and Kane. I liked the Dudleys. I think they were supposed to be the bad guys here, I guess.
They were, because this was in the time of Stacy Keibler being the Duchess of Dudleyville and trying to be mean.
I cannot fathom a point in time where the Dudley Boys and Stacy Keibler as a team. First, I can't imagine them being paired up and that going well. Secondly, I can't imagine a point in time where everyone would be like, "Boo, boo this team,
right?
Boo! I don't care for any of this."
Right? Like any of it is going to get heat from the crowd, which ironically, it didn't.
Yeah, like the Dudleys are amazing. Stacy Keibler's amazing.
Right.
What is there to hate? Like you guys are making fun of me, but I love this. I can't boo this. This is amazing.
Right. And this was in the midst of Kane being his in his new mask and new attire. This was at kind of his high point. One of his high points.
This was closer to one of his high points. You're right. He was definitely moving. He was in better shape than when he originally showed up. When he originally showed up, he was a little bit
chunky.
A little chunky. He wasn't like fat by any means, but he filled that suit out.
Yeah. He had kind of trimmed down.
Yeah, Big Show was also
this was in Big Show's one of his phases where he just wasn't that healthy. I mean,
no.
He's not definitely not the big swole like he is now.
No, he's not the big swollen guy like he is now. He wasn't at his worst. It was about it was fine.
But yeah, this was because I vaguely remember it was around this time that Kane set the record for Rumble eliminations that held for quite a while.
That whole thing, yeah. Kane, I think like 13 in 1 year or something.
11.
Oh, then
Roman broke it with 13.
All right, fair enough. Yeah, this match was tough because Dudleys are typically the biggest guys in the ring in a tag team match.
Yeah, and when you put them against two guys who are literally twice their size.
Right. It definitely hurts them. And typically, if you do have one ginormous guy, you have a smaller guy to work off of at least.
Right.
Not at all in this case.
Yeah, no, it was just two big guys against two even bigger guys.
Right, because we saw Bubba at ROH. He's not small.
No. He, especially back then, in 2001, he was bigger than he is now.
Right.
Which, and him standing next to Devon means Devon's not necessarily that small either.
Right, exactly. So Devon was the smallest guy in this match. And here, let me look it up real quick. Let's see how small Devon Dudley was.
I'm going to guess 290.
290. Let's see. How tall?
6'1".
You were so close. He is 6'2", 290.
Wow.
That's a big boy.
Yeah, and for the fact that he's the smallest guy in the ring.
Right?
Not really how you want the powerhouse team of your tag team division to be looking.
Right. So,
because even look at all the tag teams, the two tag teams that we saw at the beginning of this pay-per-view.
Right. Test and Christian were a big team, but even those weren't like as Big Show and Kane.
Right. But again, you still had a bigger guy and a smaller guy.
Right.
Christian could be thrown around like by the Dudleys. Test.
Yeah. Kane is the smaller guy of the team.
Right.
That's a problem. So all of that is just a very long way of saying this was a match that didn't click amazingly well.
I mean, my biggest gripe was Big Show pantsing Stacy Keibler and then
slapping her on the ass.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know why that needed to happen.
Why did you need to yank her pants down?
Right.
Like, it's sure we can do the comedy spot. We're going to smack the girl on the ass and spank her. That in and of itself would be kind of distasteful, but we're in the Attitude era. We need to show off some TNA.
Yep. So
we're going to whip Stacy's pants down and then smack her on the ass. And It's just wasn't needed. Anyways, there's some miscommunication between Big Show and Kane. Ends up getting real physical between the two of them. I think Big Show takes out Kane.
Yes. And
then they, according to JR, 3D the Big Show onto the exposed top turnbuckle.
Which it wasn't even that. It was just
It was a double flapjack.
Yeah, because how would you do a 3D onto a turnbuckle?
You would have to have Bubba on the outside doing the cutter onto the...
It wouldn't work.
It wouldn't, unless Bubba could jump over the top turnbuckle from apron to apron or apron to floor.
Unless he like caught the guy and then did like a sliced bread over the...
Yeah, I want to see Bubba doing the sliced bread number 2. Yes, that...
It would be amazing.
I mean,
anyway, it wouldn't work.
Right. It's not going to work. So, yeah, they basically just double flapjacked Big Show onto an exposed turnbuckle. That put him out cold. That's the match there. All right. What do we have up next?
The next one, I believe, and I'm not looking at anything. I'm just gonna guess here. I'm pretty sure it's the Undertaker versus RVD for the hardcore title.
So this one was super good. I am not an Undertaker fan, but Undertaker showed up for this and worked his ass off, and it was a really good match.
Yeah, I mean, this was back when he was in a lot better shape.
So he had just gotten in better. So we're coming right off. We're still in the American Badass gimmick.
Because he keeps rolling
Because he keep rolling.
and rolling.
Yeah. But originally the American Badass gimmick kind of had him in that like denim shirt.
With the long trench coat.
Yeah. Pretty much hiding the fact that he just came back from injury and was fat as hell.
Yeah. When he comes out now, he's just wearing
A black tank top and the black chaps.
which he was in much better shape.
He was in really good shape here.
I honestly think this was probably the best shape he had been in since he was in WCW.
I would agree. Since he first showed up, this is the best shape he had been in.
Yeah.
So Undertaker versus Van Dam, hardcore title match. Starts off in the ring, kind of your typical ring stuff. Eventually it spills to the outside, goes through the arena.
Kind of your typical hardcore title match.
Right, exactly, especially for the time. Undertaker selling his ass off for RVD.
Yeah, he sold everything like it legitimately hurt.
Yeah, for Undertaker, definitely not the norm. So
it kind of becomes the norm for the American Badass character.
Okay.
Because he kind of, in this character, is more of the blue-collar guy.
Yeah, gotcha.
Instead of being the Walking Dead zombie.
But still, it was definitely not even at his most selling point, Undertaker doesn't necessarily just sell for anyone or anything.
Right. There's very few people during this time that he would sell. He's kind of like Brock.
Yeah.
Brock doesn't sell for everybody.
But if he respects the other person, if the other person's it's a good match and they're working, he will.
Yeah, you saw that in this match against RVD. You saw it in Taker's ladder match against Jeff Hardy.
Yeah, so good little match here. Taker ends up winning, but when he wins, he wins, gets the title, and is like scrambling away from RVD, kind of like staring at him, just like, what the hell was all of that about?
Yeah, RVD's tossing chairs at him and hits him with the Van Daminator at one point.
Yeah, hits a Van Daminator, does the surfboard the chair into him while he's like slouched up against just a set piece.
Yep, he sprays him with the fire extinguisher, which I always thought was a cool little prop.
That's such a weird move, but sure.
I don't know why, but I've always liked that. Taker wins by chokeslamming RVD off the stage through a couple of tables.
Yep, through a pair of tables that are side by side on the floor. Jumps down. Apparently the ref must have jumped down at the same time because I never saw the ref jump down, but good on the ref for that.
Yeah. Taker jumps down, ref jumps down, he gets the pin, and then, like you said, he grabs the title and, like, slides backwards, like, eyes wide open.
He's, like, scooting himself back across the ground, just kind of staring at RVD. It was just like, I don't know what that was all about, sir, but I did not care for that.
Yeah, and RVD, good on him for selling, legitimately didn't move for, like, a solid 3 minutes afterwards.
Yeah, but say he got chokeslammed off a stage through a table and he played dead. So,
yep.
But say from here, Undertaker, would go on to be in the Undisputed title picture, and RVD would go on to do some good stuff himself. As we were saying earlier, he would unify the IC, European, and heavyweight belts.
Yeah,
or not heavyweight, hardcore titles.
Yep, RVD's the belt collector at this time.
Yep, he eventually would end up with a world championship, and that's when they would bring ECW back.
Yeah, he wins the WWE title. They bring ECW back, and then Heyman awards him the new ECW belt.
Yeah, so. All right, what do we have up after that? It's the women's match.
Yes, Trish Stratus versus Jacqueline.
Yes.
It was for the women's title.
It was for the women's title.
It was poop.
It was 3.5 minutes.
It was hot garbage poop.
It was bad. It was basically the King screaming his head off like he was a 14-year-old boy, talking about puppies and pointers. They're the best kind of puppies. And it's just, it was so juvenile.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I had the biggest crush on Trish Stratus when I was a kid.
Both women, obviously attractive.
But what's the point? No, you're not adding anything to this match.
You're detracting. You're actively detracting from them trying to be legitimate. You're taking any form of legitimacy that they may have had. And let's be clear, Trish definitely started off as a, hey, look at the pretty girl.
Trish was rough when she started working.
Yeah, not good. And we're kind of near the earlier end of her career than the later. So
right.
Ring work at this time, not amazing. But certainly not doing it any favors by just objectifying them the entire 3.5 minutes they're out there.
Yeah, and this kind of stuff that was happening during that match was clear as to why Evolution to fans was touted as such a big deal.
Yeah. I mean, let's be honest. At this point, the crowd pretty much was hoping for a wardrobe malfunction.
Yes.
That's really all they were there to hope for out of this match. And that's pretty shitty.
I mean, considering that at one point they start chanting, "We want puppies." Like,
yeah. What are two people that are trying to have a wrestling match supposed to do about that? All right, let's just stop and flash the crowd. Like, First off, no, not going to happen. Second, it was crappy. It was crappy of the fans. It was crappy of the announcers. It was crappy of everyone in production for
overall poop
putting it in this direction. It was the match itself wasn't even good, but irregardless of the match quality, this was crappy.
And I mean, Jacqueline wasn't a bad worker.
She was really good, in fact.
She because she was in WCW, correct?
I think she was in WCW, and I think she actually started in ECW.
Okay, because I vaguely remember seeing her in WCW and being like, oh, okay.
Yeah, believe she was.
All right. Well, after that hot garbage of a match, we have the first of our small tournament for the Undisputed title, which was Stone Cold versus Kurt Angle for the WWF
first up we had the
title.
WWF title. So, yeah, Stone Cold kind of coming off being a heel, kind of.
Well, this was right after he was.
Face? Yeah, it was.
This
weird.
was right after he was the traitor to the Alliance, kind of thing. And
no, Kurt Angle was the traitor to the Alliance.
That's right. They had flipped it. Stone Cold started off as the traitor first.
Yeah,
then
Stone Cold originally was a traitor. So, the invasion starts. Vince is dying for the old Stone Cold to come back and save the WWF. Eventually, Stone Cold flips, comes back, takes out the Alliance, then joins the Alliance.
Yep.
Because he didn't appreciate how Vince had treated him. Fair enough. Then, eventually, right before Survivor Series, Kurt Angle turns on the WWF, joins the Alliance. But at Survivor Series, Kurt Angle turns on the Alliance and causes them to lose at the Survivor Series.
Yeah, so overall, Kurt Angle was Vince's quote-unquote golden boy to get the belt away from either Stone Cold or The Rock.
Right.
Because this was at the point where Vince was hardly against both of them.
Right, exactly.
So overall, it was an okay match. I mean, it wasn't anything. It wasn't one of their better ones.
It wasn't one of their better ones. Unfortunately, I believe this is actually about the point in time where the neck injury from Owen back in '98 really starts to come back and plague Austin.
Yeah, because 2 years later, he's not in the WWE anymore.
Right, within 2 years, he's fully retired.
This actually ends up being his last title match in.
Yeah, this is the last time he would hold a championship.
Yep. So again, he looked a little slow. He looked like he was in pain.
Favoring one side. I think it was his left side that was giving him problems every now and then.
Yeah. I mean, you could tell when he walks out, he's got the belt in his hand and he's got his left arm like kind of curled up against him as he's walking down.
Later on, I'll touch on some other stuff I saw. But thinking back, I liked Stone Cold at first, but I started to get annoyed with him because I thought he was getting lazy in the ring because it looked like he was just kind of half-assing a lot of his moves and not really putting his all into it.
Nope.
Looking back on it now, that was a guy that was probably fighting off near paralysis.
Yeah.
All right, well, you live, you learn.
So, I mean, Kurt pretty much carried that match.
Which, thankfully, of all people in the world to be in a match with you that needs to carry you, Kurt can do so.
I mean, they set Stone Cold up pretty well for this. They had Kurt carry him, and then they had Jericho carry him in the last match.
You're gonna spoil it.
Oh, we would get there anyway. Stop it. Will you stop it?
Would you stop?
All
right. Anyways, Stone Cold ends up winning this. Was there a shady finish to this one, or was this one just clean? No, I remember. It was so Angle tried to set up Stone Cold for the stunner. Stone Cold shoves him off into the ropes. Kick, wham, real stunner. 1, 2, 3.
Yes, the shadiness happens in the last match.
Yeah.
So then after that, we have The Rock versus Jericho for the World Heavyweight title.
Before that, we have some awfulness backstage.
Oh, I forgot you wanted to talk about this.
Yeah, so as if it wasn't bad enough that we were basically just talking about boobs the entire women's match, backstage we have a skit. We have Trish in her dressing room, and Test just walks in and is like, basically, hey, why don't we do something? Why don't you do something to me?
Yeah, I mean, she's in the towel and she freaks out and tells him to leave and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, so at this point, apparently, I think there was something between the Alliance or something where one of them won a couldn't be fired for a year thing, and Test had won that.
Yeah.
So he was like, oh, you can't fire me. And I'm sitting here thinking, can still have your ass arrested for sexual assault.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you're sitting there and you're basically trying to rape her, buddy.
Yeah.
Not a good look.
It was not great by any means. It had no place on the card at all. And
I don't think it furthered any storylines besides, hey, look, Test can't be fired. But again, his ass could be arrested.
But then on top of that, it was the whole thing with they were in a tag team together.
Right, she used to be his manager.
Like 7 months ago.
Right, like that was never touched on either. Like, hey, Trish, back when we were together, it kind of felt like there was something, like, they didn't build off it. It just was just, hey, I'm a brash douche, and I don't remember, like, this was someone that helped you in your career, and you're probably supposedly at least friendly with at the time.
Right.
You're just going to turn around and do that to her? Wow.
Yeah.
That's just great writing.
Well, I mean, they also did. It wasn't as bad as this, but it was still pretty bad with her walking into The Rock's dressing room at one point, and they continuously talk about The Rock's strudel.
But there's a difference between willingly going into someone's room and be like, hey, what's going on? And someone being like, oh, you were like that with someone else. Why not me? Like, that's awful. That is objectively awful.
Overall, the women's division is poop.
Yeah, if you want to know why as you said earlier, if you want to know why the evolution was so needed, watch this. Watch everything that had a woman in it during this.
Yep. So then we move on to Jericho versus The Rock.
Yep.
Jericho soundly the heel in this.
Oh, yeah. So Jericho and The Rock had actually traded the World Heavyweight Championship a couple months before this.
Yep. And this was kind of their blow-off match for their feud.
Yep. So this was kind of ending their feud and going to transition both of them kind of in separate directions here for a bit. So we had some shenanigans here at the end, right?
We did, in fact, have some shenanigans.
What were the shenanigans? I don't actually remember the shenanigans So, hang on. First off, the match. Pretty solid, as you would expect a Rock-Jericho match to be.
They usually are.
So, another thing before we actually get to the finish of the match. This was kind of the period where Jericho was finally hitting his groove in the WWF. He was really starting to kind of come into his own and be that top-tier performer everyone had kind of wanted him to be since he came in. He came in late 99, started with a bang, coincidentally, against The Rock.
Yep.
And then just floundered for a while. He had a lot of problems coming into the company, whether it was him, whether it was the locker room, whether it was the writing. For whatever reasons, Jericho had a lot of hype coming in, never lived up to it.
He didn't live up to it right off the bat.
Right.
he would very, very shortly thereafter go on to, in my eyes, be one of the greatest WWF superstars ever.
Oh, I fully agree, and I'm so glad he did because I loved Jericho even when he was in WCW.
Oh yeah.
I think humor-wise, his WCW stuff was the funniest stuff he ever did.
I mean, he's the man of 1,004 moves.
And he had Ralphus and the Jerichoholic Ninja with him because, I mean, he legitimately pissed off Bill Goldberg, and it was amazing.
Yeah. So the shenanigans and towards the end of the match. So The Rock ends up going for the People's Elbow.
I remember now. Yep.
Actually, I'm sorry. Jericho goes for the People's Elbow.
Yep.
Rock counters it, puts Jericho into a sharpshooter. Jericho then flips it, puts The Rock in a sharpshooter. Rock grabs the ropes.
Doesn't Vince come down?
So as Jericho's putting him into the walls of Jericho and Rock counters it, McMahon walks down. Rock is Jericho in a 3 count, but McMahon is distracting the ref.
Vince has the ref distracted. Rock goes to take care of Vince or no.
So Rock hits McMahon, then plants Jericho with a spine buster.
Vince is selling the rock bottom that he just took.
Yep.
The ref's trying to get him out of the ring. Meanwhile, Jericho comes up, low blows the Rock, hits the Rock with the rock bottom, and gets the 3.
This is the time in WWF where people are trading finishers.
Yes, that was kind of a cool phase. I like that.
Always fun.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of that. So, immediately after this, Stone Cold runs down with a chair.
Yes.
Or no, I don't think Stone Cold.
No. He doesn't come down with a chair.
Stone Cold just runs down and jumps on Jericho before the match even starts.
Like literally to the point where the ref hands Jericho the WCW title and then Stone Cold's music plays.
Yep.
Like Jericho hasn't even stood back up yet.
Right. So Jericho hasn't even stood up. Stone Cold comes flying down, starts to beat down Jericho. Kurt Angle runs down and waffles Stone Cold with a chair.
Yep.
Rock comes back in, waffles Jericho with a chair, and chases off Kurt Angle and Vince.
And then Booker T shows up.
No. That's not till the finish.
Oh, all this happened right at the beginning?
All that happened right at the beginning of the match.
I'll be 100% honest. I missed a little bit right at the start.
So the match actually starts with both guys down, out cold, and the ref starts going for a double count out, which
oh boy,
that's not how you would start a match. You'd have to wait till both guys are conscious.
Right. Because almost every time you have the ref go, or can you continue after some kind of beatdown
right,
happens.
like think about like the Money in the Bank cash in. Like the ref won't do it if the other you'll if someone comes in and hits their finisher on the champ, they won't start the match. They'll have to wait till the champ is at least groggy on one knee.
Right. At least on one knee, or verbally says, yep, I'll do it.
Yeah. So, yeah, I'm okay to go. So, anyways, they have, again, an okay match because Steve Austin is... There's one point where he has Jericho in the corner and is kind of like hitting him with a chop and then supposed to be punching him in the stomach with his left hand kind of all in one motion. The left hand is almost just flailing limp, and it's almost like, again, at the time I thought it was just Stone Cold, beer drinking drunk, he's lazy, he's whatever. No, it's that this guy didn't have enough probably muscle control at the time to be able to make a fist.
Yeah, it was
bad.
Sloppy.
Yeah, it was sloppy and it was bad, and looking back, it's sad.
Yeah. But again, if you're going to have anybody carry you through a match, Kurt Angle and Jericho
are Kurt Angle and Jericho
ones.
are pretty good ones to do it. So, all right, as we were alluding to, finish comes when I don't think it's just Booker T.
No, McMahon comes back down.
Vince comes back out.
And Booker T ends up grabbing the belt and clocking Austin in the back of the head with it.
Yep, and then Jericho hits a lion salt, I think, for the win, or just maybe pins him off a belt shot. I don't know if it...
No, anyways, he just pins him.
So Jericho, first ever Undisputed Champion.
Which he still touts to this day.
As you should. The fallout of this whole thing, the Jericho Championship didn't unfortunately last too terribly long. I think it lasted until Mania.
Yes. And
Okay,
then
so
Triple
that's
H
a decent run.
Triple H takes it off him, and then Triple H loses it to Hollywood Hogan.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Anyways, ignoring that for a hot minute, this would lead into one of my favorite things ever in wrestling. It would lead into the Booker T. Steve Austin feud.
Is this where they fight in the grocery store?
Yes, that's exactly where I was going with this. This is where Austin starts stalking Booker T, and Booker T ends up so paranoid, and they have a fight in a grocery store, and it's the single greatest fight I've ever seen in a grocery store because it's a long fight.
Yeah, they gave
it was
them
on SmackDown, and it was a long segment.
I think the only one I like as much as this is the Austin McMahon bedpan.
That's fair, and that was a much shorter skit, but
yeah, they gave that.
This was like a full 10, 15 minutes of fighting through a grocery store, and they must have paid this grocery store a ton because they absolutely trash it.
Which is funny because you can't even say it was a fight. Like
it was stone cold.
Austin.
Yeah, you're right. Booker T hits him 2 or 3 times at a few points, but yeah, you're right. It's stone cold beating the living hell out of Booker T for about 15 minutes in a grocery store
with whatever he can grab around him.
And it's absolutely magical because it ends with Austin throwing Booker T in a shopping cart, pushing him to the front of the store, throwing him on the conveyor belt, and yelling, "Price check on a jackass."
If you've never watched that segment, it's on YouTube. There's plenty of different places you can find it.
It's one of the greatest things in pro wrestling.
Go and watch it.
One of the funniest, it's one of the best things outside of a wrestling ring in pro wrestling.
Yeah.
If not the best thing outside of a ring.
So overall, how would you grade this pay-per-view?
I mean, the undercard was really bad. The women's stuff was really bad. But the title stuff and the Edge match were all... The Edge match was probably the best match. No, second best. I'll give Rock Jericho probably better.
Yeah.
So there was a couple good matches. The storyline progression was the main thing. Having an undisputed champion, I think, was pretty cool. Having the 2 belts, then eventually having that undisputed belt. I guess I would probably give it a B, more for what it was rather than the wrestling it contained.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we're in the Attitude Era still. We're still in the era of sports entertainment. So there's more entertainment than sport to it.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I would say either B at the high side, probably a B minus.
Right, exactly. Somewhere in that range.
Because again, you have an undisputed champion in the biggest wrestling company in the world at this point.
Right. The fact that it was one unified champion was not insignificant. And to be fair to it, I probably would have rated it a B plus, maybe an A minus back in 2001.
Yeah.
17 years later,
it doesn't hold up.
It doesn't. There's a lot of stuff that's just distasteful, honestly.
Yeah. However,
at best, distasteful.
However, like you said, you have the Edge and Regal match, which good wrestling match.
Yep, just solid, well done match there.
And then you have Jericho and The Rock, which again, probably the best match of the night.
Right.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. It's nothing fantastic by any means.
So of the 4 guys in that main event tournament title, who would you guess of those ones that 17 years later are still wrestling?
To be honest, it would not have been Jericho.
Right? Jericho was easily the best technical wrestler of that group, but was probably the least quote unquote popular, at least big guy.
Oh yeah, easily. I mean, you have Stone Cold Steve Austin, who was probably the hottest character in WWF from 94, 95?
96, 97.
When was the Austin 316 promo?
I think it was 97.
Okay, so from
if not 96, maybe 96.
From 97 until 2001.
Yeah. Good 5-year run in there.
Very, very closely followed behind by The Rock.
Which possibly got even bigger than Stone Cold
towards the end there.
Towards the end of The Rock's time, yeah.
And then on the flip side, you have Kurt Angle, who was a prodigy with wrestling.
Exactly.
Quite literally a gold medalist in professional wrestling.
Right. And then Chris Jericho, who's just kind of, honestly, he was an indie darling when there weren't indie darlings.
Yeah, he was the little guy who could talk and do cool moves.
He was the smart fans guy, wrestler, which these days isn't a great thing to be, but was even worse to be back then.
Right. It would not have been Jericho that I would have thought about that.
I'm about to say, I'm pretty sure Jericho's had the most title runs out of all of those guys, too.
Yeah, if you think about it, he's even got his title run in New Japan now.
Yeah,
for being Vince McMahon, one of Vince McMahon's guys, to then all of a sudden jump and get awarded like the second highest belt in another company.
Right? Yeah. Putting on his own cruise with a wrestling ring on it, and
which apparently did well enough that they're going to have a second one.
Right. So, just given the hindsight that we currently have, in that day, I don't think he's the one you would have picked to be like, who do you think is going to do the most in wrestling?
Nope. Definitely would not have been him.
Right. And outside of wrestling, I don't think he's quite as popular, but Fozzy isn't nothing. They had a pretty big hit this summer.
Yeah, and he had I follow him on Instagram, and he posted a picture of them over in Germany. Holy crap.
Oh, I'm sure in places where his like that heavier metal kind of music is big, he's huge. He's got chops.
The concert that they were at was like one of those festivals that they do over there, and the sea of people, I shouldn't even say people, the sea of humanity that came out from in front of the stage was insane. It like the guy's done everything except for like a big movie, which he doesn't need to.
Right. So, all right, that was Vengence 2001.
Woo.
Anything we want to cover before we send this one home?
I don't think so. We've been talking about trying something a little different with putting this up on YouTube.
Yeah, or maybe Twitch. There's some video games that have come out lately that maybe we'll record ourselves playing some dumb video games and put our commentary over it. Maybe we'll reenact Vengeance 2001. And
yeah, that was kind of the thing we were talking about, was taking whatever pay-per-view we were talking about and reenacting it on one of the new wrestling games.
So maybe we'll get into that. Maybe we'll do a little bit more visual stuff. If anyone has any thoughts, feelings, opinions, wrestlinghistorypodcast@gmail.com.
Or on Facebook, This Week in Wrestling History, Twitter, WrestleHistPod. Let us know. See if that's something you guys would be interested in, and see if we can get something going.
Yeah, we're willing to try some new stuff here, branch out a little bit. We feel like we've got the chops for it.
Yeah, we can figure it out.
All right. I think that's it for us. We're History.